One of the nation's largest teachers' unions is about to host training sessions that will reportedly guide gender transitions for kids while bashing conservatives. The National Education Association's, quote, Advancing LGBTQ Justice program says it will help educators with a variety of policies, including an understanding of the anti-LGBTQ plus policy landscape, how to develop counter-narratives of inclusion and equity, deepen skills and strategies to confront implicit bias, microaggressions, and stereotypes, and develop a tool set of tactics for dismantling systems of privilege and oppression. And a partridge in a pear tree. The teachers' union also offers a database of similar material to members on race and gender. Now, one of those documents on, quote, creating a race-class gender narrative presumably criticized conservative opposition, telling educators this, to, quote, name the villains who violate our values, expose their motivation of getting back into or holding on to power, and position them as a barrier to what our families need. One parents' rights group is sounding the alarm, saying this, quote, every year, the teachers' unions funnel millions of dollars into campaigns and activist causes that almost exclusively favor Democrats. This while students fall further and further behind. Families expect schools to teach reading, writing, and math, not political slogans. It is time for teachers' unions to prioritize academic teaching, not indoctrination. Now, we reached out to the NEA for comment, but did not immediately hear back. John Yoo, that was a massive mouthful for me to read, but it sort of reminds me, you're a professor at Cal, I'm from the Berkeley Bay Area, like that's just the kind of gobbledygook that I grew up with, where I'm like, oh yeah, a bunch of nonsense where you guys are like shouting it from the sidewalks, but it actually means nothing. And in this current landscape, it's actually really detrimental to our children.
Well, greetings from the People's Republic of Berkeley, as we call it. Yes. And it's not a bad time to talk about this when we have the socialist mayor of New York, right? The socialist mayor of New York visiting the White House, because socialists don't see work. They don't see jobs as each of us providing benefits to each other through exchange. Instead, they see the economy just about power of groups. And you can see that right there. That teachers' union is not interested in improving education for our kids. We've been spending billions of dollars for education for our kids, and we're seeing worse and worse test scores. Instead, what do we see unions up to? How to control the narrative, how to advance their political goals, their radical ideologies, and how to use politicians to keep themselves in power so that they don't have to improve themselves and focus on what their real job is, which is teaching our children. And so it couldn't be a better example of the kind of policies that the new mayor of New York City is going to be in favor of, is protecting these unions, advancing their interests, but not talking about how to make our educational system better.
Yeah. You know, Kennedy, I thought, and I think a lot of Americans did, that after the election of 2024, that the Democrats would take that as a sign, like, oh, we went too far. Oh, we listened to that vocal minority. But it seems that we've seen this quite sort of shocking doubling down. And we saw it certainly with that portion of New York City that voted Mamdani into power, that they approved the more radicalized agenda and version of the horror show that we had already seen.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you that the establishment Democrat Party is rudderless and it is without principle, because if you are making shifts like that, because, you know, it felt like there was a moment where they were entertaining more charter schools and more choice for parents, but the pendulum has gone the opposite way. And I'm kind of glad the NEA didn't get back to Fox. I'm hoping that means that they no longer exist. Because these teachers' unions, they have too much power, they have too much money. They're never going to be able to spend all the money they got from COVID, you know, the hundreds of billions of dollars that flew essentially into their coffers. Have children benefit from it? You know, have their mental health statuses improved since then? No, absolutely not. And test scores continue to go down. And the cities where we spend the most money, where you have the most membership beholden to these unions, that's where you see the worst performances in the country. Looking at you, Chicago, LA, New York, and DC. You know, it's like you have the more teacher union involvement you have, the worse outcomes you have for students. So that should tell parents something like, don't stop driving the bus. You were doing it for a little while, get back behind the wheel.
Yeah. And I feel like, Molly, I mean, again, coming from the Bay Area, back then, like I was taught free thinking and independent thinking, and I was a conservative growing up. I was supported in that, and it seems that that has been replaced by an indoctrination and an unwavering inability to accept any type of deviation from a very specific agenda. You're a professor too. What have you seen in these kids coming up and in this current time?
Well, I was just thinking also, though, about what you're saying about how we thought we would move past this. Yeah. This radical trans insanity, it's like an 80-20 issue. 80% of Americans are saying, we don't like this. And so we were told that we'd kind of moved on, that it was no longer happening. And then you see what this powerful teachers union, which is a big part of the base of the Democrat Party, what they're doing in the months to come. They're pushing this just as radically as they did a couple years ago. What's changed, I think, for a lot of this is that the media are trying to downplay. A lot of the corporate media are trying to pretend that the Democrat Party and their base have moved on from this when they really haven't. We just had an election in Virginia where our governor-elect is very radical on this, but she just said she wasn't anymore, and the media just sort of let that go. And it shows, I think, that it's not sufficient to just think we've moved on. We actually should probably be prosecuting some of these people who are involved in mutilation of children, helping school districts come in between parents and children. It's a really serious thing, and we're not treating it as seriously as we should. And until we do, they're going to keep doing stuff like this.
Cheryl, I wanted to close with all your analysis on the economics of this. And you've had a lot of really incredible interviews with members of the administration. And the reality is that the union is a machine. It is a well-oiled and lucrative machine. And we know what happens. They talk about people who want to relinquish power. Well, they're talking about themselves. And certainly when the power is married to an income, I mean, they are loath to let that go. What does that look like for you?
I mean, look, what Kennedy mentioned, I mean, the billions of dollars that has been given to these teachers and the unions in particular, of course they don't want to let that go. But look, they're fighting back because they know they're losing the argument. I was looking through some of the language in this document, and we talked a lot about women and the protection of women in girls' sports, in particular, making sure that biological men are not in these locker rooms. That is something that has been a national conversation. That was a sleeper issue last year in the election. But here's what they say. Our base and persuadables want to support transgender student athletes, but we are susceptible to our opposition's argument that excluding trans youth is necessary to protect the fairness of women's sports. They know they're losing the argument. You know what else is in the document? They're promoting gender unicorn. Have you all talked about that? Gender unicorn is where there's more than two genders. I mean, we should be gender fluid. And then one of the things they put in this document is, here's a big circle. Where do you think you are on the gender circle? Pick it. What are you, a cat? Are you a dog? Are you a unicorn? They really, I think this document shows that they are ready to figure any way they can to fight back, but they're using the nation's children to do that. And that is egregious. There are 3 million members of this organization. Every parent should be petrified, in particular in California, to your point, about what is being taught to their students and the ideology of these educators. It's shameful.
I am petrified. I have a friend whose young daughter was like 11 and came home and announced that they would like a different gender and they would like to be addressed differently. And then I saw a photo with a tail, and I asked about, receiving this with love for my loved one, and asked about influences. And the influence came from a certain school and a certain teacher and the thing is, if you are not influencing your children, they are being influenced by something else. So to your point, parents should be petrified and step up and ensure that it is their influence over their precious children. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.